Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christine Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm super excited. In today's episode, we're going to be interviewing Linda Stapf, a CPA and owner of Stapf Financial Services. Her mission is to help families, individuals, and small business owners achieve financial peace by effectively managing their taxes and maximizing their investments.
With Linda's extensive experience in the field, Linda understands the challenges entrepreneurs face and is driven to support them in changing their future. So we have similar values and purposes, which is why we're here with Linda today. And I'd also like to say about Linda, she is a certified Profit First professional. So she is one of us. And I know she's really good at it too. She is also Business Made Simple certified and a Fix This Next, which is another thing that we share, certified advisor. And Linda combines her knowledge, training, and personal experiences to create easy to follow plans that lead to consistent progress and measurable results. And we've asked Linda to join us here today because she has also developed a unique Done in 5 plan, which we're going to be talking about, which helps her clients know what it takes to properly position themselves to sell or retire from their business within 5 years. So, Linda, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really like having the chance to come talk about this stuff. It is a pet project of mine. Something.
So, Linda, how's the weather down in Maryland? We always have to get the weather in somehow.
It is like 45 or 50 degrees maybe out there. It's actually nice. It was refreshingly cold.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And Christine probably has 3 feet of snow.
I do not yet. I do not. Our snowiest month in Colorado is March. Surprise, surprise. We always hope for a white Christmas, though. Right now it is sunny and it's about 60 degrees. It's a little chilly outside, but we still have sunshine and the grass is still green on the golf course.
Nice.
That is cool.
Get their last rounds of golf in. Well, thank you for joining us again, Linda. I've known you for a number of years now. And one of the things I really appreciate having conversations with you is you always ask me questions I don't already know the answers to. And you also ask them in a way that gets me to look at things from a different perspective. But you do it in a very kind of soft and kind way, because I'm not a certified financial planner. I'm not an accountant. So, you always ask me in a way that I can understand, but also that adds value to the conversation. So, I applaud you for having the ability to do that. And I think in your Done in 5 program that you've worked on, you've developed, you've really taken the key components and put them into a program that can help people, but not overwhelm them.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. Something simple, because it doesn't need to be complicated. There are some fairly easy things that you can do to kind of move yourself forward to make some big changes in your life. And that's it. I really want to help business owners focus on their own financial security and their family's financial security. And they sometimes put that last. I've been in business for over 30 years now, and I've seen that in action so many times. I experienced it as a kid. At 16, my first business exit, I was the victim of my dad's business. When he died, just disappeared. And I'm trying to put things in place to help other people not be in those spots, to improve their life, even if it's just by small piece, like they do one thing and maybe that helps. For some people, that makes a huge difference. The focus is using our business to create personal wealth and make that be the focus.
And I think that's one thing, I constantly preach people who actually, listen to me on the podcast or, we're our clients that we work with is really building their business as an asset. And the one thing that I find is they love that idea. They don't know how to get there.
Mhm.
And there's also some habits that we identify that need to be changed in their life and how they're treating their business in order for that to happen. In addition to connecting them with the right people to make that to happen, because we help with a certain side of the business,
Mhm.
but then, it scales up to this point to where we can have a really good foundation that we build for them, but then we need to turn it over to someone else that says, hey, now let's do this. Like, you're at this financial level. Here are some opportunities. And
Mhm.
and we've talked about this before. It's really diversifying, your assets, and your business is one of your main assets. And I know we both support business owners in recognizing this and then helping them along that journey.
Right. Yeah. That first step is getting that foundational business set up so that you're not commingling business and personal. You got a very clear idea of what your business is paying you. You have a clear idea of the profits of your business. So bookkeeping and accounting, all of that stuff is critical to get as a first level so that you can very clearly see that. And then looking at your own personal profit and loss, your own personal expenses and your personal assets and kind of working through those things. So getting a clear idea of where you are is so helpful so that you can move forward. You know what you have to work with. And that's an important thing. I need to know how much I can use to leverage outside investments, to leverage getting into real estate, for example. Can we set up a retirement account? Is there excess cash flow? All of the opportunities are only there after you have a clear picture of what's actually going on today.
And I think a lot of business owners that I've worked with, including myself, up until I did Profit First. Then once we did Profit First, and we had to step into what was I really taking out of my business, right? And that had to include all the travel, all the phone, gas, vehicles, and other things the business was paying for. That really was my income. So when you start stacking up all those benefits that you get from the business, it's a lot more benefits than, if I was the employee in the business, I wouldn't have access to all those advantages. So, right, taking the time to do this shows you what the real, revenue that you're taking out of the business is. So you have a more clear picture about that.
Yeah, it's important to do that because if you're going to leave your business, you need to replace those things that you don't even know about. And that can be pretty substantial. I did that in my business and started to look at all the things. It was a pretty big number of all of the benefits that were coming. Health insurance alone for a couple can be $24,000 a year. That's a big number. And it's a big piece of planning retirement is getting that health insurance covered. So yeah, knowing all those numbers is critical. Figuring out where that.
We have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. I'm done.
We have outlined in our Profit First system to where it's like, how does the business support you? And I know, we talked about this years ago, Linda, and we're really looking at, that being an opportunity is raising that awareness and seeing, okay, so we have owner's compensation. That's one thing. But then as you're saying, how much is the business paying for your medical insurance? Well, what about your cell phone? What about your vehicle? There could be other expenses that come into play, like as a tax strategy. I have the business as part of my owner's compensation fully funding my 401k every year. And then we figure out, well, should we, how are we going to fund this? Is this going to be as a Roth? Is this going to be this way? And then the profit distribution. So there's several things that, like, as you said, like, how does the business support you that we can identify in working with clients that can give them that clarity. And the upside of all of this is not only does it raise our awareness as business owners, but it also shows someone who might be interested in the company of they're stepping into this role or this job. How, what benefits are you going to get? How much are you going to get compensated? What has my business been doing for me? And how does this play out?
Yeah, that's a really important part. If you're going to sell your business, it needs to be more than just a job for the next person. It needs to be a viable, profitable opportunity for them. They need to be able to see that they can get paid, plus they can pay their debt off. If they incur debt for the bit to buy the business, they need both those pieces. And it's really important to know that walking in and to be very clear about it. It makes you a more viable business when you're looking at selling.
So, Linda, with the done in five, we had a conversation before about, it could be not just retiring from your business, right? There's other, like getting done in five could be getting out of the day-to-day of the business in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you have to develop management. That means you're going to have to pay a manager. So your income might be a little less, but getting ready to either leave the day-to-day or leave the business to a family. And I think you had shared with us, and if you could share again some statistics on the possibility of selling. It's not that high. I thought it was much higher. It's not as high as I thought.
Yeah, no, 80% of the businesses that are listed go unsold. And that's coming from business brokers who are actually actively listing and marketing businesses. 80% of those don't sell for lots of reasons. Bad records. Too much owner involvement, no profit, very undiversified income streams. So lots of things can affect your sellability. Bad accounting records are one of the very, very top line. If you can't produce financial statements that agree with your tax return and bank records and all that stuff doesn't jive all the way across, your seller is not going to trust anything you give them. And they're going to have a real hard time believing that you have a profitable business if it's not in all of your records and you're not running it like you should.
Yeah. And I've seen a sell of a business or the intentional sell of a business fall apart because the clients that we work with, they have brought the financials and they say, hey, can you review this? Mm-hmm. And we've looked at those financials and they just want some insight. They're like, something doesn't seem right. I think I'm missing something here. Can you guys just take a look? And we've looked at financials and we've pointed out the problems that we see and what doesn't line up. And business owners have walked away from buying other businesses because of, the irregularities that we have identified that, they just jumped out at us, it's to where it's like their assets aren't listed properly or their income doesn't match up, or there's expenses that seem really off as far as their spend in different categories and what that means. Yeah. So, when it comes to really building a viable business that you can sell, there's a lot of moving pieces to it, it sounds like, and there's a lot of possibility for lost opportunity, it sounds as well.
Yeah, there's so many things that can go wrong that it's very hard to actually make it work. I've been in the same place. I've looked at financials that business owners were looking to buy. I have, clients that were looking to expand and buy another location, and they just didn't make sense. When you start looking at the financials, it just doesn't make sense. You look at the fleet and, like their vehicles are all old, so you're going to have to replace them. There are lots of things that go into that can just make it a no-brainer. Don't do this because you're just going to sink money into this thing and you're never going to get it back. Yeah. And personally, I've closed a business. I know you've closed a business and not sold. So there are a lot of businesses that just don't go anywhere for lots of reasons. It's just not enough of a business maybe to sell it, or it's very tied into that owner. I work with a lot of professional services and they don't have some of them don't have something that can sell. Like I could probably sell my business, but somebody who's doing therapy may not be able to sell their business to the next person. I've got an editor who can't sell her business to the next person because it's all very tied to her stuff. Their specific skill set. And it would be hard to find somebody to sell it to who can do the same thing.
So people can either just close the business or sell the business or leave it to someone or hire a manager to run it. So with Done in 5, this course is and your focus is going to be to get them prepared for that, whichever way that they decide to go.
Yeah, to start thinking about those ways and what it actually means. And if it's not sellable, then what do you do then? You expand your personal net worth and you start making it more of a lifestyle business and really emphasizing what you're getting out of it, if that's your plan. Or if you want to put a manager in place, start to build the systems out so that somebody can drop in, get yourself out of that day to day and looking at those pieces. It's almost always more profitable to hold on to your business because you don't have to pay tax and it just rolls. It is, by the very nature of it, more profitable than putting it into a diversified stock portfolio, for example. And there's I did an example of selling a business for $1 million, netting about $700,000, reinvesting that, and just the difference in cash was huge. You're giving up a paycheck and you're looking at a smaller stream of money coming out of it. So shifting sometimes is the best move, and making your business leaner, more niched, so it's very specialized and you can charge higher prices and make life work better that way.
So if they're going to start this journey with you, what information are they going to need to start with?
So we want to know where you are. So really it's pulling together what you own and what you owe people, what your business owns and what you owe people. So those are two separate situations. You have personal assets, you have business assets. And starting to walk through what's really there, starting to walk through what you want out of your life in 5 years. Where do you want it to be? Do you want to still be working in the business? Is that part of what you want to keep doing? Do you want to go off and do something else? Do you want to sell it? So thinking through some of those possibilities and getting an idea of what your business might be worth if you sold it. What is a ballpark number that you could sell it for, and seeing if that fills your gap for that future life that you want to live. How much is that going to supply for that? And do you have other retirement assets? Kind of pulling all those assets together and figuring out what they're going to do in the future for you.
So if you sell it, right, $1 million and then you sell it, you get $700,000 after taxes and you put it in an investment, let's say it gets 8%, right?
Right.
So, but if you can keep the business and keep it running, you're going to get between 12 to 15 to 16%. So you could almost get double the return just by keeping it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might still get a paycheck, depending on your involvement in the business. If you put a manager in, your paycheck might be less. So you're looking at the profit at 12 to 15%. That's your return in profit, but you might actually get paid for your labor. And there's more than just money kind of floating through this equation. A lot of people have a hard time stepping back and stepping out. As business owners, we find purpose in what we're doing and how we interact with the community. That's typically our social network. It's how we provide value, how we feel like a valuable person. So we need to replace that somehow if we're going to completely step out of the business and find that other activity. And that's also part of the journey. Where are you going to spend your time? Because now you've got a time budget that you want to allocate. How much is going to be business? How much is going to be personal? How much is going to be this thing that you wanted to do out here? Whatever it might be. Pickleball is huge with clients.
Pickleball.
We start doing pickleball, and they're going up and down the East Coast playing pickleball.
Oh,
I have yet to try it.
Oh, yes.
It's going to have to happen soon.
Yeah. I noticed they just put a brand new pickleball court outside at in our town, and it's like booked all the time. And they have another one inside, a smaller one, and that's booked all the time. It's a huge thing. I think I would be more towards the Bourbon Trail, but
Me too.
totally the bourbon trail or some kind of art trail or something. The other thing that I've talked about this with some of our clients, if you sell it, you sold your asset. So
Mhm.
one of the things, like if you hold on to it and you have a manager and it's growing, now you also have an appreciable asset. Now, if you buy real estate, that's an appreciable asset also, but your business can actually appreciate much quicker because you can double the size of a business in 3 to 5 years. So in 10 years, it could be the asset could have tripled from what you were going to sell it for. And the lifespan for people has really lengthened. I mean, Warren Buffett's partner, he just passed away, 99. What was his name?
Charlie Munger.
Charlie Munger, 99.
Yeah.
We have a member at the Finnish American Heritage Society in Canterbury, Bill Aho. He's 104. He is the University of Connecticut's longest living retiree, but 104. So, this thing about retiring early and everything, it's really like there's so much opportunity as an entrepreneur and a business owner that we can explore if we, are strategic about it and we're intentional with our time and our money and the design of our business.
Yeah, we're planning for longer lifetimes all the time. That's part of the thing. And people need to be active, doing something. And why not run your business? I agree. That feels like a no-brainer to me. I don't see the spot in my life where I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing. I will do less of what I don't want to do and more of what I do want to do. That's my definition of done in 5. For me, getting out of the pieces I don't want to be in and letting it continue to grow without me, buying real estate, putting money in my retirement plan, putting money outside so I'm diversifying where my assets are. All of those things give me options that I can change in the future, because making decisions today for 5 years out is kind of easy, but I don't know where that's going to end up 30 years out. I have no clue where that's going to be. So it is a continual long-term planning process to kind of make it work. You can't just let it go. It's a garden. You have to tend it. You have to reseed it. You have to just keep going with it so that it continues to serve your needs.
Yeah. But what if, let's say somebody said, you know what, I've been in the day-to-day for so long, I'm just worn out, I'm done, and I want to sell this. But they don't have all their ducks in a row, so to speak. Their books aren't super clean. There's a little commingling.
Right.
Maybe there's some things in their business that they really need to tighten up. How does someone go about kind of adding more value to their business to get it ready to sell for the top dollar?
Yeah, just running through those things. Clean up your books. That's usually the easiest thing to do first. Pay your personal expenses from your personal accounts. Make your business stuff really clear. Stop commingling those things. Start building in systems. Look at the people that you've got in your company and figure out if you need to reallocate, get new people, who can actually run it. If you want to get out of it, starting to look at their skills and let people run it. Taking vacations is actually a really good way to see where the holes are. Yeah, we've all done that. I was off for most of November, and I come back and you start to see where the holes are and what you've got to fill. And that's happened on a regular basis in our company. Just being able to see it, it becomes very apparent when something's not done for 4 weeks. No one owns that job. Okay. But building those systems so someone else can step in for you, totally critical. And simplifying your business really helps too. We tend to get overcomplicated, try to do more things for more people and more things and more things. But simplifying it makes you more profitable, makes the job easier for someone else to do.
Yeah.
So it's not custom that only Linda can do. I'm trying to get away from those jobs too. The ones that only Linda can do.
Yeah, because then it's totally relying on you. Yeah.
It is. And that's typical for every business owner. We all make exceptions because that's my good customer. I want to take care of them. And you need to start putting rules in place that everybody follows. And your rules need to be focused on your good customers. And you need to peel off the bad ones and just keep going. Refine your business, refine your customers. Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay, usually when he goes into a business like a restaurant, he's going to fix it. The first thing he does is shrink the menu.
Exactly.
He cuts it down to probably 20%. These, they have 8 pages. He cuts it down to 1 page, right? A chicken, a beef, a vegetable, a soup, and a salad, and 2 desserts, and boom.
Yeah. And he looks at his staff and figures out what they can do well and really excel at, instead of trying to put some fancy thing that the owner just wants on the menu because, well, we've always had lobster thermidor. Well, nobody buys it. And this cook can't do it, so let him do hamburgers. He can do that really well. Yeah, sometimes there's some ego in what we build into our businesses that we just need to step away from.
Yeah, and I know all 3 of us have spent time looking at who is on our team and what it is that we do, we provide as a business and to whom we provide that to. And I know as I have stepped out of roles in my company, I had to find, and I know Steve, you did this, Linda, you have people on your team that do this.
Mm-hmm.
We find people that aren't like us, but do things better.
Oh, yeah.
And my team is so diverse and they do some really great things. And I don't know how to do, and I know, Steve is in the same boat. There's things in our business we do not know how to do at all. And we don't want to know how to do it. And we want those people to know how to do it and to continue to do it. And I'm glad not knowing and just being able to focus on what's important. And that's really what it's done, is it's getting the right people on the team who are doing all the things better than me is allowing me to focus on what I do really well. And also mentor others who do this well to allow them to step in that light so I can eventually step out. And, 10 years ago, I wasn't thinking much about this, but now I'm looking at the whole, what does the next 5 years look like? And the mission, vision, and purpose process with goal setting really ties into that, which I know ties in and supports your program too, so they can know, where am I at? Where do I want to go? And what are the gaps? And the other side of that is the financial planning, not just for the business, but for us personally. So it's not just a conversation. It's not something that we talk about around a fire pit while we're sipping on a drink, on a Friday or Saturday night or at like a business retreat. It's something that can be, that can happen. And that's the one thing I love about your program is it's really looking at that picture and where someone's purpose is driving towards, like, what are the conversations they're having? What are the things they're saying? What dreams do they have? And then you're saying, that's great. So let's now figure out how to make that happen. And, here's not just a financial plan to do so, but let's raise our awareness about some of these other things too that have to change in your business or that you can do to support the financial side of your goals and your dreams.
Right. And even just the dream discussion, sometimes there's something that is kind of sitting there and the spouse doesn't know about it. So there's, one wants to retire on a boat and the other one wants to be in the mountains. And they haven't had that conversation because they just kind of assume they're on the same page, but they're not really. So those things happen. Or I have always assumed that this is what we're going to do and it's going to take this much money. But if you start looking at trading time for money, I can do something else now, or I can wait and do that in like 15 years. Maybe it's worth stepping back from that perfect rosy picture that you kind of thought was right. If it's going to take 15 more years to get there, maybe you can find another way to get to that same experience without the monetary outlay. And we do that with testing. Sometimes, you want to be someplace. Well, let's test it or taste it. If you want to retire someplace, let's go there and stay for a month and see what it's really like to be there, not during tourist season, like in the off season. Some of those tests can shortcut a big spend and a wait, because you need more money to do this huge place in Montana. But if you actually go there in the off season, you find out you don't really like it there, and you really would rather be in your nice cozy house at home, then you don't have to save the money up to go buy that house in Montana. So, changing goals by just exploring them a little bit, and exploring them with your spouse or whoever's going to be there with you, so that you're both on the same page, because that helps so much.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Yeah, that makes me and my wife are, 59 now. And so we're starting to talk about things like that. And my vision of travel and all this and do all this and go here, I did that just this year, 6 weeks pretty much on the road. And you know what? I'm kind of done with travel. And we did a lot of travel right after COVID. So it's fun to say we're going to travel, but go travel for 6 weeks or go travel for 2 years in a row consistently. And you'll be looking forward to going home. And, like you were saying, putting off big purchases, boats are big purchases, right? And, you can rent boats, right? Some of my friends, we have a saying, rent your fun, right? Don't own it. You only need the boat when you're in the water. You don't need to be fixing the motor and all the other things. Same thing with, vacation homes. When we go to the lake that we go to, I want the best 2 weeks in July. That's what I want. And that's it. I don't want to have to worry about the snow, the roof, the plumbing, the trash, the septic, the taxes, the repairs, the painting. I just want to go there for my 2 weeks and, swim, boat, kayak, sauna, and then go and leave. So, but to buy another house, to buy a second home, we've looked at it. It's just the down payment, the mortgage, the maintenance. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And everybody has different things that are important to them. And you can't do all the important things, but you can definitely focus on one and make one happen. Susie Orman had put out this number, and this has been years ago, that it's going to take $5 million for the average person to retire. $5 million for an average person. And I'm like, that's just bogus. I've been working with clients forever. A lot of them don't have even $1 million, but they're fine. They're doing the same thing they were doing before. Their life is similar to what it was when they were working. We do some tax planning, we manage some things around, and they just look at their expenses differently. We're only spending money on what really makes us happy. We don't have to spend money on other things. You start to really get discriminating with your spending, so that the things that you want, and maybe that's you want to have somebody clean your house on a regular basis because you don't want to have to do that. Maybe that's your splurge. And that is built into your budget, but you can't do all the things and retire early. You have to pick and choose the things that are really important to you and to your family. So,
and I think too, it's the Done in 5 program. One, it starts these conversations, but then it also allows you to go, well, what if I I want to do like 90% of these things instead of 50% of these things.
Mm-hmm.
What would I have to do? And it allows you to make strategic decisions based off of facts
Mm-hmm.
of what you have to do or produce versus based off of that emotional kind of gut that as humans, we just kind of fall into, to where it's like, oh, I can never give up that, or I always want to do this or whatever it is, or I can never see me living that lifestyle or something like that. And I think it really leaves that space. It invites the people that you work with into that space to have the conversations about, well, what do you really want? And if you really want that, this is what it's going to take. So what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you going to have to say no to? What are you going to say yes to? And how can we get there? What's possible?
Yeah, it puts you on the same page when you start looking at the facts of it and you take away the feelings. We start with feelings. What do you really want? But then you start to look at the facts and what it's really going to take, and you decide based on what you wanted if that's really important enough. A lot of people never connect those two. They don't put the facts into the situation. They either say, I will never be able to retire. It's never going to work for me. I'm going to have to work till I die. Or they think they can retire and sell their business for $1 million, $2 million, and that's not reasonable either. So there's a lot of myth and how it should be done and how it was done and how my parents did it and the neighbors did it. But there's not a lot of, here's you and how are we going to make it happen for you and what's really important for you. And that's really all that matters. I don't care how anybody else did it. It doesn't matter. What you have is what you have. Your situation is very individual. And if you want one specific thing and we can figure out how to make it work, that we have to chop out a whole bunch of other stuff, or you want all of it, well, you're going to have to wait a little bit. That levers time, expenses, assets, all that stuff can be looked at and just twisted around when you start to figure out what you really want. And it makes it more viable when you have the facts, when you actually know in your heart what you really, really want out of life. And you can screen your decisions by that value system that you put in place. I really want to be able to have a vacation every year with all of my kids, on the beach in the Outer Banks. So that's a big expense. And if that's in your budget and that's really what you want, then we build it in somehow.
And I would have to challenge, do you really? Do you really? Maybe you should try it first and then
before we build in 30 years.
Right. Do you really want all your kids in one place while you're on vacation?
There was, next to the cottage that we rent on this beach for 2 weeks in July, there was a guy that he just bought the house next to that. He had sold his pest control business after owning it for 40 years for multiple millions of dollars. And he buys the house, he buys the pontoon boat, and he's got the whole family is there, right? One daughter's drunk. She falls off the dock. They go on the pontoon boat. The baby's screaming the whole time. We can hear the baby scream all the way across from the other side of the lake. And they come back in. And so that was a few years ago. I have never seen more than 2 other family members there at a time now. I mean, they had like almost 20 people. It was mayhem. I thought somebody was filming a movie of, it was mayhem. But then this summer we saw him and he just had 2 grandkids with him and his wife, and they had a wonderful time. So, what we have in our mind, everyone's going to be there. I need everybody there. Yeah. And the mom was complaining that all she did for 4 days was cook. She didn't even get to enjoy anybody. So it was, that was the dream, was that you're gonna do that. But now they like it, just 2 kids, one-on-one for each grandparent. So I had heard that Susie Orman thing about the $5 million too. And what's interesting was, if you took $13,880 a month, right, for 30 years, you would have gone through your $5 million. That's if you had no interest, no capital appreciation, and that doesn't include
money.
Right. That doesn't even include Social Security, right? That's a huge amount of money. That's a pretty generous budget. Because we're also considering once you're in that stage of, okay, I am going to retire, I'm going to slow down. Typically your house is either almost paid for or paid for. In your business, your shop or your business is either close to being paid for or almost paid for. So even if it's not paid for, if you're in a 25-year mortgage, you probably have a 3 or 4% interest rate. And that mortgage, the property is what you paid for 25 years ago. So you're paying that in $2023 or $2028. But, the business was sold in 2025 or 2020. So it's got a lot of years. So it changes up a little bit. And it's interesting. Because I'm involved with some nonprofits, I do spend a lot of time with retirees, and a number of them, they're so busy all the time. They're like, I don't know how I had time to work.
I hear that a lot. It's like, so what are you actually doing? They are very busy. Yeah. They're doing stuff. And from a budgeting perspective, there's another statistic that's out there, like $5,000 a month if your house is paid for, pretty much covers almost anybody in most areas of the country. And if you're in New York City or out in California, maybe not.
Right,
but if your house is paid for, $5,000 a month really does cover you for almost, and that's not a hard number to get to.
Right. Yes.
Really
that's more reasonable. That's more reasonable.
It seems like a lot because, there are years where I was just a single mom. And I remember I would raise my kids and support my family off of $2,500 a month. Right. And it's but it's like the times have changed so much that I feel like we hear numbers and we're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Or how are we going to get there? Or what, how is this possible? And I even think, today, I have a daughter who's in her, mid 20s, and she even gets overwhelmed about, the cost of things. And she's like, how could I possibly support myself or afford a new car? When am I going to be able to buy a house or things like that? So I think it's not just, people who are at that stage in their life where they're like, oh, I think I would like to start thinking about exiting my business, or what does this look like? But even just becoming more aware of what's possible. And it takes that anxiety away, because I see so much anxiety, not just from an individual, at a young age who's trying to figure out, how do I get what my parents have? But also other business owners who are at this point of well, maybe I should think about this, or really, what does this look like? Or I've never done it. 5 years sounds a long time, a long time. I want to be out in 2. So it's there's this vast group of people that experience anxiety just from not knowing what this looks like or what's possible.
Yeah. And they step back and they don't do anything about it, which is totally the wrong way. So putting some clarity at the situation, at least they know where they stand and they can make some steps to move themselves forward, as opposed to being just drowning in, this is not possible. There's no way this will ever happen. Getting one thing in place can sometimes change stuff. I've told you about a situation where a small life insurance policy literally helped a mom stay able to function after her husband died with 2 small kids. And $100,000, it was a small policy, but it gave her the space and time to grieve her husband and actually be able to get back in the workforce. So that's not a huge expense, but it does change lives. Those small little things you can put in place for them that they don't even know about until you put it in front of them.
Yeah. And I know, I worry, because it's this is, I talk about in the book, don't leave your beast of burden, your business, to your family. Do not do that. They do not want that, and, set it up to where it's it could be sellable, or you have an insurance policy in place that covers the burden, of the business or whatever it is. But that, when I started diving into that, I was thinking down that road of, I'm not going to leave this to my kids or my husband. Like, one, they wouldn't know what the heck to do with it.
Right.
And two, by the time they were done with it, it probably wouldn't be an asset anymore. Like, so what are we going to do with this thing? So that planning really brings that peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it increases our awareness, and it really doesn't take that much time. And I know you've worked with several clients through this process.
Yeah.
So how much time does someone need to dedicate to start working on like a done in 5 program like this? And I know it will continue in the future to where maybe in the next 5 years, like their purpose or their passion is going to change, or the direction.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the typical investment from an individual just to start figuring this stuff out and get to a place where they know, okay, I'm good. I've got this now.
Yeah. I think with some concentrated work, like an hour a month is honestly what I spend on my own plan. I just go back and review it on an occasion. And sometimes I don't even do that, but I'll put in a chunk of time and look at where things stand and refocus and move forward. So I think the initial planning process, the thinking about it and getting a direction takes a little bit more time. And it's helpful to have somebody to kind of help you brainstorm some of that, because it's hard to see the outside of the bottle when you're sitting inside the bottle. You can't see the label.
Right.
So having some outside impact and then being let to go ahead and let your plan run and come back and revisit it a year later. I mean, when I started first doing this for my business, it's been probably about 8 years now. I started looking at my clients differently, looking at my business differently and how I was running it. It's way different from what it was then. 5 years made a huge difference for me, and it's continuing to evolve. So it's not something that takes forever. It is something that takes a little bit of concentrated effort in the beginning, and then check-ins on a regular basis moving forward, so that you make sure that you stay on track, or you shift if you decided something different needs to happen. So you make some shifts. It's not complicated. Some of the system stuff takes a little bit more time, but if you've got employees, you can offload that.
Right.
They can systematize it, and you can approve it.
So it's like an hour a month just to review and go, okay, yes, everything's where I want it to be. I'm good. So you're just kind of checking it over, going, hey, has anything changed, and connecting with it. But to get it to that point of maintenance, there's got to be a range depending on kind of where somebody's starting, like where their journey is starting.
Yeah.
What's the minimum amount of time to the maximum amount of time that it has taken the clients you've worked with to really get a plan in place to where they can maintenance it?
So sometimes I've been able to do this with like 3 sessions with a client, where we look at where they are, we look at where they want to go, and then we put some things in place. I have clients that we've worked with on a plan where we're doing kind of the same thing every single year. So, a bonus check at the end of the year in a business to pay off debt, a retirement contribution so that we're building assets. And we do that. The client just emailed me, and this is something we do every year. We sit down for a half an hour to an hour, and we go through where she's putting her charitable contributions, because that's important to her, what we're going to do for a bonus so that she can do something else with that money and invest it outside the business, and what we're going to do for her retirement allocation. So that's a simple, easy. It took a little bit to set up in the beginning, but not a whole lot. And it runs like clockwork. Every year, we just keep doing it. She's at the point where even if her business doesn't sell, we've saved her a couple $100,000 in taxes by what we're doing. And she's got $450,000 that she's invested in the company, and she has a paid for house. So, and she's Charlie Munger-ish. She's living in the same house she was in. That's part of it. It's being thrifty and spending money on just what you want, not being, the flashy person with the new boat and the new car. So some of that plays into it. But it's knowing what you want. She wanted a paid for house. She wanted the security of being able to retire whenever. And she can't sell her business. It's just not going to be sellable. she's just going to close it down one day and stop doing what she's doing. But she's enjoying it for right now. And the sales get less every year, but it still works and it pays her bills.
Nice.
And she's in her 70s.
What I hear you saying is it can take kind of a minimum of like 3 hours all the way to, let's say, 12 to 15 hours, depending on what they have, how intense of a plan they want to build out, what their dream looks like, and how you can really facilitate all the pieces coming together strategically that is the most benefit for them.
It can be really simple or it can be very complex. I've got other clients who've invested in real estate. That becomes more complex when you've got real estate investments that you're having to manage and handle, and that's your choice of investment on the outside.
But I feel like even still, if you told me, hey, Christine, we can have your Done in 5 program, and I want Steve to weigh in on this too, because we're totally different personalities when it comes to executing and tasks. You can have your Done in 5 program done to where we have a whole plan for you in 15 hours. I'd be like, great, like, where do we start? What do we do? And then I just have to maintenance it by reviewing it every month. Like, I'd be like, how do I sign up for this? Like, what does this look like? Tell me what to do. And I'm curious, Steve, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm very task focused, and I will spend 6 hours trying to figure out how to fill forms out online, regardless of how difficult it is. No, like 1 to 3 hours sounds fine to me. I own some real estate, but not crazy, because I don't want another job. Like, owning a couple businesses is enough of a job. I don't want to manage like real estate. I have REITs, and I invest in farmland, but I do that through a mutual fund, right? So I don't want to do the management of it. I don't want to talk about any toilets with anybody. But I think a lot of this, whether you're being done in 5 or done in 10 or done in 15, a lot of this, getting this kind of rolling and saying, what do I want? Where do we want our lives to go? Where do I want my family, myself, or however you're involved, and taking the time each year to go through that and revisit it. Is that still what we want? Is that still making sense? Do I have healthy parents? Am I going to have a house so my dad can move in, or do I have to provide housing for him? One of the things that there's a couple different, ways that you can look at things. Do I need to buy a condo in my town? So if anybody in my family needs to stay nearby, can I put them in the condo? Because I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, they're not staying with me. And if they need rehabilitation, my dad he's 83 and he had a complete knee replacement, right? How do we provide the care that he needs that is not completely obtrusive to our life? Because he's not dying. It's just a knee replacement, but it's painful. It takes time to heal, and we have to be accessible to him to make that work. So, even thinking of those things, and I probably would have not thought about that 10 or 15 years ago, but just being realistic, and how far do we want to live away from our parents, or far do we want to live away from our children? And, just far enough, but not too far, or whatever it is, so those are some other things to think about, but definitely the financial planning. It's a big aspect. And the other thing that's interesting is, as we develop and grow our businesses, I really should have been saving a lot more for my retirement 30 years ago. So there's kind of a little bit of like shame. Oh, what, I didn't take care of it. Why, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? Now this and that. So having a course that kind of, okay, it's okay. You're okay. Yeah, I know you didn't do it 30 years ago.
From different places. And
right.
Years ago, you had different priorities.
Right.
Everybody had different priorities 30 years ago. We had kids, we had to put clothes on, we had to get them to school, we had to do all of those things. And now we don't. And we feel like we're behind, but we're not really. When you look at where everybody starts at, no one gets really serious about this until they're in their late 40s. truthfully. They just don't get really serious about it. My kids have IRA accounts and have always had them, but that's not normal. So they're way ahead of the curve because I've forced that on them, for lack of a better word. They just got it there. But making things automatic and simple and taking out the decision. When you have to make a decision every time you need to do something, you stop making decisions and you start putting it off.
Right.
So having that path laid out and knowing exactly what you're doing, automating it, kicking it into play, and then just checking on it periodically is awesome. It'll just go and it'll get there. And there's no reason to feel shame. It will still work out for you. We all have. You've built skills. We can use those skills. If you don't have money, you do have skills, so we can amplify both sides of that.
Right. And, I took the assessment, and the other Steve that was sitting next to me at the retreat took the assessment and we both felt way behind. And after we took this assessment, we're like, oh, okay, we're good. Like,
we've done a few things. Yeah.
For what we've done, for what we want and what we've done, we're good. But to see it laid out like that in real numbers was like, okay, we're better off with thought, so that was good. But also kind of showed us that this is where we're at and this is where we want to be. And now we can start making that plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is critical to know where you are. That's the starting point.
Well, Linda, if there's a couple of things you want to share to kind of summarize, what would they be?
That it really doesn't take millions to retire well. Start where you are and automate it. Make it simple. And then reflect on it occasionally. Have discussions with the people that are involved. Because some of what you were talking about, I have clients who don't want to do long-term care insurance. And my only caveat with that is that you've decided your daughter's going to take care of you if something happens. You need to go tell your daughter. So have those conversations that you need to have and see where everybody stands on the things that you've decided on so that nobody's surprised when they get handed a responsibility.
Yes, that's funny. I have long-term care insurance just for that reason, because I've seen it and I know what it does to other people's lives. So if I'm ever in that position, I want them to be around me in a supportive way, but I don't want to put the burden onto them if I don't have to.
Yeah, it's hard enough to deal with emotionally, much less having to deal with it financially as well.
Yes.
And having to leave a job to take care of somebody because that's what you need to do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Or even give your kids the opportunity to now parent you. I don't want to sign up for that.
No, I don't. No. I bought long-term care insurance when I could do a 10 pay and it's paid up for life. I did that probably 20 years ago. It was cheap, it was affordable, and my boys will not have to take care of me.
Right.
So I have 2 boys.
Or decide when you get TV time or not, or if you get to go out and run your errands or not.
Yeah, they're opinionated enough. They don't need any more control.
All right. So we are going to include, you have a really great assessment, what Steve and I were talking about. So I'm going to include your Done in 5 assessment link in our show notes. So if you are interested in finding out where are you at and, where are your areas of opportunity, I would highly suggest go take this assessment. So I will include that. And we are also super excited to be working with Linda to where she's going to be doing her Done in 5 program here at Green Profit Academy, which starts in January. And this is going to be just about the second or third time that you're doing this workshop program. So it's at a extremely affordable price because we're really working through the program, and it's the beginning of building this out, which is also tied to the book that you have been working on for several years. which is very exciting.
Yeah.
So we'll be sharing that, the Done in 5 workshop, how you can sign up for it, and the details in our show notes as well. And that starts January 9th. So perfect timing right after, the new year, ties to your goals of figuring out what it is where am I and what do I need to do and how do I close this gap? And it can contribute to your 2024 goals. So we would love to have some of you all of our listeners in there with us.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I'm trying to make it fun, non-threatening, and just something that will help you kind of see the opportunities that are sitting in your life that we can take advantage of.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I love the process too. It's simple. It's very informative. So it's not intimidating. When I went through just one of the test workshops that you had, to where we, was just introducing kind of like the Done in 5 and how do we get there. It was very simple. And I was like, wow, like as much as I have figured out, like there's some things I don't know and I need to go look at these things, but it wasn't scary. It just kind of inspired some curiosity and it wasn't intimidating. So I'd love for other people to experience that as well and raise their awareness around how do I get to where I want to be and what does retirement look like for me, or what opportunities do I have?
Yeah, it's fun to kind of look at those possibilities. I enjoy doing that with clients a lot. How can we make it work is like my favorite game.
Well, that was very fun. That was a good podcast, Done in 5 with Linda. And the show notes will have some details. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. And we look forward to you joining us on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.